Welcome to The Audacity, the podcast by women, for women, and anyone else brave enough to listen. And we want to give a big shout out to our newest TVIP member, Bullfinch. Let's go, Bullfinch.
Welcome. Okay, that's enough. I don't know how to get this thing to stop. Okay.
I love it.
No, that's how excited we are.
We're so excited.
I got a little sound box.
Welcome to our Patreon community. And if any of y'all that are listening or watching are not part of it yet, please get on in there. We love our Patreon community. We have so many chats open. We have posted like 3 blogs in the last week alone, especially if you haven't read Gwen's blog. Do whatever you got to do to read that blog. I don't know who you made it available to, Gwen, but it needs to be shouted from the rooftops. I love that blog so much.
That means a lot coming from you. Thank you.
Oh my goodness.
She's an excellent writer in general.
Oh.
Yeah, so make sure y'all join.
I want to write a book soon, hopefully. I'm still in my school stuff, but once all that's like completed and over with, hopefully soon, I think I'm set to graduate. If not by the summertime, then definitely by wintertime. So more to come.
Awesome.
I'm looking forward to that for sure.
Yes.
Thanks. Even though it's at the turn of a recession, but I have my hopes up.
I'm going to bring out the Mr. Burn fingers when she comes out with the book.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes, we can't wait. And we can't wait to talk today all about being friends with pick-me's and how that fits into our fight for feminism and our fight for girl code, and how are we supposed to unite in the light of that. And we have also our very first film review for y'all. Not really a film, I guess it's a series, but we did watch Adolescence. I know that's been a very hot topic of discussion recently on social media. And of course, the discussion is unfortunately mostly happening between women, as we know. But we know that there are some men that listen to this podcast and watch our content. And so hopefully the discussion will be helpful to everybody. But that was a heavy series. I'm excited to dive in with you ladies about that. I think it's fresh in all of our minds right now.
Yes.
We were initially going to review Mean Girls, which I still think we should do because
Definitely.
I started watching it and I was like, this is really good, especially when you're talking about how like imperfect feminism and how we all still need to come together. I feel like that movie really kind of captured something there.
Definitely.
Before it was in the zeitgeist. So that was a fun little watch back. I took some notes. So maybe we'll discuss it for our next film review. I don't know. Unless something else comes up. Yeah. But yeah, what's the tea this week, ladies?
So have y'all seen the Supreme Court being changed in Wisconsin? Like they're having their vote, I think, April 1st. And Elon Musk is supposedly buying those votes for, I think his name is Schimmel. He's like this conservative right-wing judge who wants to just basically be Trump's right-hand man. And so he's doing everything in his power to try to prop him up as the guy to be voted for. And it's not lost on me that allegedly Elon Musk has a case against him in that state as well. So it would benefit him the most to have that right-wing judge there who would throw the case out and weigh on it in his favor. So I think that's why he's trying as hard as he is to have this petition be sent out where it's like, if you sign this petition to oppose activist judges, I'll give you $100 as a way to skirt around the bribery laws. That it's only legal if you were to give somebody money to vote in that person's favor. So like that would be illegal, but it's not illegal to have a petition that says you will do XYZ for $100, which Elon Musk is a billionaire. This dude shits in a golden toilet and wipes his ass with $100 bills. So you would think, that wouldn't be enough to sell out our democracy, but I don't know. Wisconsinites, I hope you're listening, because anybody that Elon Musk supports and would throw money at, like, I think by now we've seen, some of the consequences of what can happen for anything that Elon supports. So I think we should use your best judgment on that one.
Yeah, like have some self-respect. $100.
$100. You can't even buy groceries with that.
At least you make him raise the price. Like at least
some
hold
zeros
out.
on there.
Yeah, at least hold out till you get a check. Because I promise he's not willing to throw that much at you. You know what I mean? Like you're cheap to him too. Like there's only so much that these people are willing to shell out. And it's just that a lot of people are short-sighted and, don't care enough to fall for it.
It wouldn't surprise me if he told them to do it and then they did it and then he turned around and didn't pay
Didn't
them
pay
and
them.
said,
That's
that's
their
wasteful
MO.
spending. That's wasteful
Yeah.
spending. It wouldn't shock me.
I still can't believe like that's still legal to even have a petition to get these
Yeah.
signatures for $100. Like that would still be considered not bribery somehow. I wish.
Yeah, because it looks just like bribery. I don't
it
know.
does.
Because
It's
that's
still
exactly
bribery.
what it is.
Yeah, I don't
That's
know.
literally what it is.
And people are like, I'm going to sign it anyways and just collect the cash. And it's like, you're still, come on now.
I was just going to say, they're counting on people to do it because they know a lot of people are desperate or
Mhm.
a lot of people just don't care. Remember when Trump was saying how much he loves uneducated people?
Yes.
And he was talking about pretty
Yeah.
much his own voters.
Mhm.
Like, it's a percentage of them. Because why else would you love the uneducated?
Why else would you want to abolish the Department of Education?
Absolutely.
Which I'm so angry about because I have a 3.9 GPA, not to brag, but I'm supposed to qualify
should
for these
brag.
scholarships that I've
Mhm.
applied for. And when I go up to that office, the funds are frozen. I cannot claim those scholarships. So
Yeah,
I'm
that sucks.
so pissed. It was like, work hard for what? And I see why
Right.
this generation is so angry. And so they feel so hopeless. And it's
Yeah.
because of instances like these where, meritocracy was like sold to us as like, oh, if you go to college and you work really hard, you can prop yourself up for success and have all this, benefits. But then you actually, apply that to your life, and
Mhm.
really for what?
I agree.
So
I mean, it's even the fact you can tell it's insincere because then you have to pay for college. Like
Mhm.
in a lot of other countries, you don't
You
have
don't
to
even
pay
have
for
to pay.
college
exactly.
because they know that it benefits the country and it benefits democracy. And so think about why they're doing what they're doing here.
This whole uneducated thing is going to backfire on the country.
Oh, yeah.
Because
absolutely.
I think their goal is to make America great again, which is, unfortunately, white people have everything and Black
Mhm.
and brown have nothing, including the ability to educate yourself and level up in life. But they're going to end up creating future generations of uneducated children. And so there's not going to be enough scientists to, or enough doctors, enough anything to help actually keep the society going. It's
Look
just
at
going to be a
Russia.
bunch of
I keep
people
telling
A
working.
lot
you.
of this is going to have far-reaching consequences.
Yes, it absolutely is. And I'm like, I wonder, like, do they not have foresight or do they
Yeah.
see it and they just don't care?
I
Because
think
I'm
it's
like,
both.
what the,
Well, why would someone say that they love the uneducated? Like, why? Like, if you stop and think about that, why would somebody who wants to be in ultimate power say that they love the uneducated?
And
You can
represent our
control-
country as a whole to other world leaders and saying how much he loves the uneducated, meaning
you can
our,
control
his
the
people.
uneducated. That's what this whole thing is about. They're
Exactly.
looking around and they're seeing too many minorities and too many people who they don't think deserve to be successful. It's too many of us that's like doing well.
Exactly.
And they have to find a way to stop that. That's really all this is, in my
Exactly.
opinion.
Unfortunately.
It absolutely is. And who is he sort of trying to network with? It's other dictators in other oppressive countries that have largely uneducated or poorly educated, constituencies or whatever. So that's what it is. Impoverished. They want people to be weak and impoverished and barely know how to read and just be okay with doing manual labor starting at like 7 years old. I mean, we're going to have children working in coal mines again, like the equivalent of, I don't know where they're going to be working now, McDonald's. Or whatever.
Who would even want their kid? Who would want their kids to
There's
do that?
so many terrible parents out there. Unfortunately,
That's
a lot
horrible.
of people.
And even
Unfortunately,
if,
a lot
even if
of
they're
people.
not, terrible parents or terrible people, like they're still poor, like they're in poverty.
They're poor. And it's about what you pride yourself on too. So, right, like a lot of men or blue collar men too, they idolize this idea of like, oh, you work 40 hours a week. I remember my first part-time job, Like,
You
I
work 40 hours a week and you're tired? I work 60-hour weeks. I work 80-hour weeks. Like, I put that work in, and it's like, you're still exploited, my dude. Like,
and you come
that's
home
actually
and your
worse.
7-year-old
Right?
child overhears you saying that. And then we'll talk about this more in the adolescence segment too, but like the way that boys idolize their dads, right? And so you're going to have boys that are going to be willing to go and show off for their dads at like 12 years old that like, oh, look, I can work.
That's so
I
horrible.
can work too. And,
No type of childhood.
in Russia, Ukraine, all over Europe, like you can go into trade school at like 8th grade, I think. You can like
Wow.
make that diversion and like instead of continuing like regular education, you can go do a trade or learn a trade or something like that, which I'm not saying is bad. It's just interesting how like that hard work ethic, that's how it sort of plays out. It's not that people are for child labor, it's that they're pro hard work. You know, that's what it is. And you can take that ideology really far, I guess. I don't know.
And it's going to backfire because the mindset that the mass of people had back in the day is drastically different than now. Well, I ain't gonna say drastically different. There's facets or aspects of it that's very different. And they're going to back so many people into a corner, like this current crop of humans. And it's just going to cause chaos. Like, I think we're going to see a lot more like Luigi Mangione situations because people know what it's like to have a bit of freedom or a bit of money or a career or whatever, and to have it taken away from them. It's a huge reason why they do it, because they lost something or were in the process of losing something that they felt was theirs. Imagine how much worse that's about to get when you back people into a corner who, just like women, right? We got a taste of freedom in this little span of a few decades that we've been in. There's no way we're going back to, do you know what I'm saying? To like, oh, you can't vote. Oh, you can't do that. Like we're willing to fight to the death. So imagine what the men, once this patriarchy is crumbling and once they realize, you know, there's nothing left for me. So this is just going to backfire. And I hate to say that, but this shit is about to get worse.
That's actually the best case scenario. The best case scenario is that we find out people have a will to live. I'm so serious.
Exactly.
This is what scares me about America is like, now that like you can tell we're in trouble because everyone is looking around, especially all the white people are looking around at each other like, what are we going to do about this? And usually when they ask that question, it like it's Black people come out and protest. And now everyone's just asking the question and nobody's like coming out and like doing anything meaningfully, right? Like, yes, I know there's been protests and stuff, but like they haven't been big enough to where the media has to cover them, you know, or anything like that. And they haven't been like radical enough. And so we're kind of in this limbo now where it's like, well, who's going to do something about this? And it's like,
I can assure you it ain't going to be us.
Yeah, exactly. And
I can assure you it's not going to be us.
It's time for the people who reap all the benefits to actually do something. Yeah. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. And it's not lost on me how whenever those, you know, white people were kicked out of those town hall meetings and they were looking around the room and it was other white people who were also looking around the room.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, nobody's coming to save you. Like, no, you have to do it yourself.
This needs to happen,
time.
though. This has to happen. They're going to have to fight their own battles. We already know what's going to happen if we get out there, so that's why we're done.
Exactly.
And a lot of what Donald Trump is doing, these executive orders, we all feel like it's just a way to try to get us out there. And I don't know what percentage of Black people I speak for. I'm going to go out on a limb and say 92% of us. We're staying our asses at home no matter what. I don't give a... He could sign an executive order that says, you know, take out all the Blacks when you see them in the streets. That's just going to make us... You get what I'm saying? We're going to really stay at home now.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing you can say that's going to get us out there. This is not our fight. We protested.
It's not.
On the 5th of November. We did our part. We're done. So I don't know if they're going to get the Latinas to do it or if white women are going to come together. I don't know. But,
it's time to find out.
I'm going to be at home like watching Netflix, like shows like Adolescence.
Netflix and chilling.
As literally you should.
Doing my nails or something. Yeah. Like I'm not getting out there. I'm not even there.
As you should.
And I don't think a lot of us
It's time to find out.
I think the next executive order that he was going to pass anyways was more immunity for the police. So declaring all but open seasons on protesters or disseminators or anybody that they want to call the enemy within or the other, and as ways to like justify murder. Yeah, which they're already getting away with. So
that's
they don't need more.
They really don't even need it.
But they're gonna get it anyway.
Which is more of a reason why Black people they were. I don't think they were expecting. They absolutely were not expecting us to not protest. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. No,
seriously, their whole plan is like kind of being unraveled by this new development. Like, I actually love it.
When I say we are not our ancestors, and I'm not saying that in a disrespectful way either, because a lot of them did fight and they did go through a lot for us to be where we are.
It was a different time.
But it's such a different time. Like, we are not falling into the game, and it just is what it is.
No,
they're going to have to come up with something else. Like, it's not going to work.
I've been loving it because it's really like low-key the thing that's sending their whole plan into shambles.
Oh, they had it all planned out, didn't they? I don't know what they're going to do to come up with a justification for that, but it's not going to be on the backs of Black people. I'm sorry. It won't be us.
And it's
that I
better
know.
this way. It's better this way.
I agree.
It's actually better for everybody at this point because, yep. And it's going to be it's just a really good visualization of like who they're really coming for, because they're really just waiting for Black people to give them justification to go after anybody.
Yep.
And that's how it always starts. And so I'm just loving this limbo that they're in now. It's like, well, where are you going to go? You have to, they're basically on the offensive now, when they were really hoping that they would be on the defensive against all of these, BLM protesters and whatnot. And it's like, they're not here, babe. You're going to have to find somebody else to.
Now it's the veterans that are coming out. Now it's their fellow white people coming out.
That's what I want to talk about. The veterans. If there's anybody that's going to get vengeance, it's going to be a fucking veteran. Especially if they try to start taking away or chipping away at their veteran benefits like they have been talking about. Oh, it's a wrap.
Medicare, Medicaid.
That'll be the nail in the coffin for them. Fuck with these veterans and y'all gonna fuck around to find out. Because I think that's just wrong. I mean, the vast majority of them like literally fought and like risked their lives.
They were in Afghanistan and they were standing next to those burn
PTSD they're
pits.
suffering with. They lost limbs. And you mean to tell
Their
me you don't
lungs are
think that they're
affected. Our Afghanistan vets.
All of that.
And I had a friend who served and I watched with her as the Republicans voted against giving those veterans health care for those burn pit type sicknesses that they got. All the Republicans voted no towards that health care extension. And you would think like that would be enough for them to stop voting Republican, but I don't know. There's still plenty of veterans out there that
I was
did
told,
vote
and I don't know how true this is, but I was told by people that served in the military that they are kind of in so many ways coerced into voting conservative. Like it's almost, the way it was said to me was like, it's pretty much a requirement. If you don't, you're going against like
the peer pressure.
You're going against patriotism or whatever the word is. Like you're not really a real
the real
patriot.
cancel culture. Yeah.
Terrible.
Sovereign, I know you had some tea as well. Let's cover that before we have a voice memo today from our Canadian friend.
Woo.
Yeah, it was just real quick. It was just about the 21 with no kids trend and how it's brought out, in my opinion, regretful parents, mostly regretful mothers. And I'm like, the best way to spot one is them. So basically what they've been saying is stuff like, y'all out here doing the 21 with no kids trend. Are y'all okay? Is your uterus working? Are you mad because no man wanted to knock you up? I mean, like they're literally saying the craziest things and not realizing how stupid they sound, not realizing that all they're doing is exposing that you are a regretful mother and you are extremely jealous of the fact that there are women out there that chose a different path. That's really it. That's all. And these women,
your internalized misogyny is showing.
It literally is. And these women wasn't even saying anything. They were literally just singing a song. A singer named, or R&B singer named Jacquees made this song years ago, by the way. This song is a very old song. But you know on TikTok how old songs recirculate and they make a challenge out of it. The women are just like dancing. It's like 10, 15 second video and they're not even saying anything. And you read the comments and it's just like, what the fuck? And everybody started doing these whole think pieces. So if you're watching this, just know that if you responded in that kind of way to a child-free woman, like your uterus must not work. Do y'all really think that these women chose not to have kids? Just know that we know that you're jealous. And I hate to say that, but like that's really what it boils down to. Like you're not helping the cause. There's women who say they're happy being a mother. We believe you. Fine, whatever. If we say we're happy not being a mother, believe us. Fine, that's it. But I really hate to pull that out and say that, but that's literally what it is. Because there's, you know, and I explained it. I'm like, if you are truly a happy mom, you don't give two shits what a child-free woman does with her uterus or not do with her uterus. You just don't care. You're too busy being a good mom and focusing on your life. But for you to take time out to go under somebody's post and say, nobody cares that you guys are child-free. Nobody gives a fuck. You took the time out to comment. So you clearly care. So what you mean? Because when I come across content that I don't like or I don't agree with, you know what I do? Remember that face you made with that video about the girl who held her baby up? She was like, you cannot look at one of these and say you don't want one. And then I think it was like cricket sounds. And then the face she made, she was just like, swipe. It was the funniest shit ever.
That's all I do, though.
That's it. That's all you got to do is swipe. But when you stop and leave a comment, you're telling the algorithm that you give a fuck. And
Exactly. They're just
it
gonna show
doesn't
you
matter. It
more.
doesn't matter if you type "we don't care" or "I don't like this." The algorithm doesn't know that. The algorithm is saying, "Oh, this person commented. This person likes this," and this is why you're gonna keep seeing content from child free. If you really don't want to see it, don't comment.
You gotta
Click not
scroll
interested,
away.
swipe away, whatever you gotta say. Whether you're on YouTube or TikTok, there's a way for you to like stop that content from coming on your timeline. Just do
It's
that.
very easy.
That's all you gotta do. It's not hard. But yeah, I really wish that we could like respect each other's choice. But I always say it's not child-free women. We're usually saying things in retaliation to what's being said to us first. But they are here making it seem like, oh, we're bullying the parents and we're doing... No, I did plenty of videos about this. Y'all started this beef. Not saying these people in particular, but women, parents in general from back in the day, they started this. Like saying your only purpose in life is to be a mother and to have be a wife and all this other stuff. We're all different. We don't all want that. And it's okay.
And it's funny to me because it proves the thing that I've been saying for the longest time is that it's not men that go their own way. You know, it's not anything like that that's actually a threat to society. It's women that go their own way. It's women that are not trapped or, you know, that are not like necessarily falling into whatever society's trying to get all women to do. We're the real danger.
I agree.
We're the real danger to the structure, to the patriarchy, to this whole little system. And that's why I will always be an ally to like the 4B movement, even though I'm not part of it and stuff like that.
Same.
Because any little thing that we can do, you know, following through, if you don't want kids, just don't have them. You know, don't let people convince you. Don't let people bully you, etc. You will have been right in the end. You know, the happiest parents are the people that have always known that they want kids. They've always known that it's going to be hard. They've always known it's going to be a full-time commitment. They didn't think it was going to be a fun, magical adventure. You know, they knew it was going to be hard. They knew it was going to be, you know, a lot of like grunt work, and the grunt work never stops. It just changes, right? Like when you have a baby, it's like all the diapers, all the feedings, all the night wakes, whatever. But it does not get easier, quote unquote, as your child gets older, which again, well, there's so many like things to say about the Adolescence show along with this, but yeah, like people don't realize that work, it just changes, right? Like when they're teenagers, you're just gonna have to have more conversations. You're gonna have to have more, like, it's gonna be hard just in a different way.
Yep.
And a lot of people have kids thinking it's gonna be a magical fairy tale. And those are the parents that want everyone else to kind of find out the hard way like they did. And it sucks.
That's
and
exactly
so don't listen to them. You know, as a single, you know, or even married, child-free woman, you represent a threat. And so that's why people are so triggered by you. It's because it makes it obvious that it was a choice. And like the people that are the most triggered are the people that made that choice in a, I don't want to say in like an uneducated, what
not
am I trying to say?
They made the choice not realizing that it was a choice, basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
yeah, they did it because it was what you're supposed to do.
Absolutely.
And so then they get triggered when they're reminded that, no, that was actually a choice. You did not have to do that. And like doing something when you're not sure about it is probably going to backfire on you. And like people don't like that.
It's such a permanent decision. And I also want to shout out, I forgot to do this. I was going to do this at first. I want to shout out all the mothers out there that come on my child-free platforms and all the other child-free content creators who are honest. They are transparent. They don't hate child-free women. They're like, I think it's cool that y'all like know what y'all want. But when I get on social media, I'm seeing comments like that all the time from mothers. They're like, I think it's so dope. Like, y'all know what y'all want. Stay true to what you want. Don't let society, change your mind. Because if I could go back and do it over, I would do it over. I would not have kids. I love my kids. You know, I would never, I can't imagine them not being here. And, you know, they've changed my life. But if I could go back and have my memory erased of like having a child and start over, I would start over. So shout out to y'all, because it's the mothers that are honest and straightforward that's going to bring women together and help women to make an informed decision. We don't hate children either. I fucking
Y'all
hate
should have
that.
seen me and like my husband going through my like teaching highlights on Instagram, and I was just like, oh, look at how
No,
little
kids are a joy.
I miss them so much, and I had like the best time teaching them, but it is so different than having kids of your own.
Absolutely. Yes. It's so different. And anybody who hates children, in my opinion, is weird. Like that's a mental illness because
kids
children
are amazing.
Like you were
so
a kid
innocent.
At one point.
They're so innocent. They don't, and I always want to tell people it's not the kid that we don't want per se. It's the responsibility of raising that kid in this type of society that we don't want.
Exactly.
It has nothing to do with the kids at all. Nothing
it's a huge responsibility.
to do with the kids.
Yeah. Love kids. And I know people probably hate it when we say stuff like that because it's so much easier just to like write us off as child haters and as like, oh, you don't understand the magic and the innocence. I do. And I love it. And I want those kids to live their best life.
Absolutely.
And I will do my part as a member of society and I will pay whatever kind of taxes y'all want me to pay as long as kids can like eat lunch at school and like, have a good education and be safe and all that. I'll pay whatever, even though I don't have kids. I don't care if my tax money pays for other people's kids. I love that, actually. I love that taxes can do that. I love that our government can be as efficient as to put food on every child's plate. Like, that's amazing, actually. I don't hate that at all.
Completely agree.
I love it. All right, well, we got to wrap up. But we, over on Patreon, we asked specifically for a point of view from one of our Canadian friends because we've been talking about U.S.-Canada relations a lot. There's been a lot of tariff talk. There's even been some war talk. Things are getting a little crazy. So we all live in the U.S. And so we really wanted a perspective from one of our listeners that's actually lives there, that's hearing the rhetoric, what are their news channels saying, etc. So let's find out what they think.
My perspective as a Canadian is that most of Canada has come together in the face of the economic and physical threat of tariffs and invasion. And it's been some time since we felt this united and strong as a country. Wow. Like a lot of other Canadians, I'm happy to pay double for a pint of greenhouse Ontario strawberries rather than U.S. strawberries. And food banks have actually received record-breaking amounts of U.S. produce donated by grocery stores that can't sell it. I look for Made in Canada labels before anything else, and I no longer order anything from Amazon or Walmart, and I'm not alone. I'm hoping that these habits will instill a lot more mindfulness in Canadian consumers even after this nightmare administration is over. And while some Canadians do boo the U.S. anthem at sporting events and things like that, this is just reactive anger and the feeling of betrayal after everything Canada's done to support the U.S., especially after 9/11. We feel extremely disrespected by American conservatives, but I feel that after the initial shock, most Canadians now understand that American liberals are as much of a victim of Trump as we are.
We are.
I'm so glad they know that. I'm so glad people around the world know that everybody here isn't pro-Trump.
Canada knows that, and so their retaliatory tariffs are more geared towards red states than blue states. So some of the red states that produce like bourbon and whiskey and things like that, they've put the retaliatory tariffs on that. Instead of just a blanket tariff on all goods coming from the United States, there's only certain ones that come from red states. That really makes you think, because it's like they know what the solution is. Like we also know what the solution is. That's sending a message, that, we know it's not all of you. So we're not trying to hurt you, but we need y'all to know like this isn't okay. So the solution would be to just not vote red next time. I think it's so obvious.
When she said the strawberries, I'm like, I don't know if she was just using that as an example or was she really?
I think it was an example.
As an example?
Yeah, she's just saying
I'm
that,
like, why would Canada want anything from any produce from the U.S.?
Yeah, I just feel like they're just ready to make their wallets hurt. Like, it's funny because the tariffs are working the way that they're supposed to be working in the U.S., except for that's happening in Canada. Like, what the thing that they're trying to do with tariffs here, right? Gwen, please stop me if I'm just bullshitting. But like, I feel like the thing that they're trying to do here by instituting tariffs is that Americans will buy American, right? And supposedly, right? And it's going to increase the amount of stuff that we produce in America. But instead, it's like Canadians are now buying Canadian and they're not buying American. And like, it's just having the reverse effect. Like, people here are like, no, give us the non-US vegetables. We want the vegetables that are not grown with pesticides and all this crap. Whereas in Canada, they're like, yeah, like F this US produce, like we're not going to buy it. Yeah, well, huge thank you to our subscriber that sent in that voice memo. That was really, really good to know because we're definitely not getting this side of things in our media. And I've even heard, some people saying that like Canada is preparing and is prepared for war and things like that. And we're not getting that on our side. So we're just over here thinking
purpose.
On purpose. Yeah, of course. And yeah, the tariffs we're very confused, if anything. And it feels like other countries are like, have their P's and Q's, I can never say an expression right. I'm so sorry.
I can write a
know
blog. I kind of want to write a little blog about this
eventually,
but
yeah,
to kind of clarify some of this, because it's been a while since I've read, news on just what's happening with the tariffs, because they're going through and then they're not going through. They're being negotiated and they're being pulled back. And so with all that being flip-flop back and forth, I've had so much shit I've had to do in my own little world that I haven't been keeping up as much as I feel like I should. But I definitely want to read up on what's been happening on that and just keep y'all informed. So stay tuned on the Patreon.
Yay. Yep. Okay, will do. All right. And when we come back, we will talk about why you shouldn't be friends with pick-me women. And we're back. So, ladies, the topic is why shouldn't we be friends with pick-me's? And this comes on the heels of us talking about girl code and how we all need to unite as women and, have each other's back. But how do we navigate that in a space where there are a lot of women that are male-centered? And I do feel like we need to talk about the dangers of that while we still talk about supporting each other. So in my mind, you can definitely support a pick-me woman's right to have rights while understanding the danger of interweaving or intertangling your life with a male-centered woman. And that's kind of what I would really love to dive into today. What are y'all's thoughts? What are y'all's experiences with that? Let's talk about it.
I had a pick-me friend for at least 7 or 8 years. We reconnected after high school. Because I was working at Ulta at the time, and she would always stop by, and I would just comment. I'd be like, "Hey, weren't you in so and so's class?" And we passed each other in the hall sometimes, and we just kind of reconnected over that. And eventually, a friendship grew, and we were best friends, thick as thieves. And it took me a while to accept that part of her personality is that she was kind of more male identified, I guess. And it kind of broke my heart over time because there would be points of time where I would try to push her gently a little into the path of righteousness, and it just wasn't, sinking in for her. And eventually there came a point in time where there were some decisions that were made and there were situations that we were both put in that I realized I would not have been in if she wasn't such a pick-me. I hate to say it.
Yeah, it's
but
true.
It's so heartbreaking. But yeah, and that was at that point where I realized I could not save her and save myself at the same time. So at some point I had to cut that loose and rip the Band-Aid off, and that really sucked. But I remember a very much a catchphrase of hers was, not all men, first of all, and women are just as bad as men. I quote, women are just as bad as men. And that was something that we would argue about constantly. And I would constantly try to shift that perspective a little bit and show, even by trying to show her statistics with quantifiable evidence of the contrary. And she still was stuck on that point that women are just conniving and they just don't get caught. So they're not in the statistics. And I knew I was arguing with a brick wall at that point, and I just had to let it go. And so I just learned to just keep some of that bottled up. But then over time, I had lost such respect for her that I didn't even realize that that's what that was, that, feeling, because to me, it just felt like we were just growing apart, as, friendships kind of naturally do over time. But it was at that point where I think I could put a name on it. That's probably when I lost respect.
Yeah.
And so
I've had a bunch of pick-me friends and pick-me family members my whole life. One of the things that stands out to me the most is when you are dealing with a pick-me family member or friend who's in an abusive relationship or disrespectful type of relationship where they're getting called bitches and all, whatever else. And you're trying to tell them, hey, this is not normal. You shouldn't be going through this. And they always end up picking the man. No matter what. And I've had people in my family, women in my family, that would literally be getting beat to a bloody pulp. Family members would go to try to help her, and they turn on the family member. and they're right back with the man who was just beating her ass. You know, I've seen them go to court and lie for the man on the family member that tried to help them. And that's just one example of how dangerous being with them or hanging with them can be. Because it's like, at some point, that woman is sealing her own fate. And a lot of times, especially these days too, the men are not only taking them out, they're taking out the cousin that just happened to be hanging with her that day, or the best friend that just happened to be there, the person that came to pick them up to help them escape, or whatever, right? They think they're breaking up, and the woman is like, oh, I'm calling my cousin to come help me move. You show up to help them move. He pew pew, or I ain't got to say that now here. I'm just so used to TikTok and YouTube.
I know.
Language.
Yeah.
We're on YouTube now, so you can say pew pew again. Sorry.
Dang. I didn't even think about that. That's so true. But that's when it made me realize, you know, these women are actually dangerous. And they will literally get back with the man after he's unalived a family member. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, or have done.
Absolutely.
And I hate to say this, and I've said this many times on YouTube and TikTok, many times. Their fate, a lot of times, is already sealed. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's not to say that bad things can't happen to a woman who's not a pick-me, because bad things happen to all women, all races, all ages, all times, every day, all day. But you don't want to be in that position where you were trying to help somebody who clearly is male identified, clearly ain't changing. Like Gwen said, talking to a brick wall, you might as well just save yourself, because whatever happens to them, or whatever was meant to happen to them, or going to happen to them, or whatever, is already written, as we say. It's already a done deal. There's the only thing you can do is put yourself in harm's way trying to help these women. And it hurts, you know, especially if it's like a close friend or a close family member, but it's going to boil down to, do you want to save your life or hers? Because it's, you know what I'm saying? I'm just being dramatic, but I'm being honest at the same time. Like, that's really what it's going to boil down to. Personally, at my age, I don't have, like, the moment I sense a woman is a pick-me, automatically not being friends. Like, automatically. I don't want you to have my phone number. I don't want
out
you
of my way to
me.
avoid you.
I don't want you, like,
Go and ghost.
If you come to me and say we should hang out, I'm going to be like, no, I don't really be having time to hang out. I have a life. I have things to do. Like, literally, I don't want to.
School was such a great excuse for me.
Oh, I know, right? It really is. Or working a lot, which I don't, but I'll say that. Like, oh,
I was going to say, nobody needs to know. Yeah.
They can't look up your work schedule. That's not public info.
It's just not worth it. And the same thing with the trauma dumping. The pick-me girls love trauma dumping on you. They're not going to leave their situation. They're not going to do anything.
Endless trauma dumping.
Yeah. They're not going to change anything about their lives. They're just going to come to you as a trauma dumping center. And that's another thing that I am no longer dealing with in my life. I mean, I hate to sound like a bad friend, like, oh, because I got accused. You're not a good friend if you will just turn your back. I'm like, listen, I am
You're
not
a good
friend.
enabler. Yeah.
Exactly.
Is what they really mean.
Yes.
I'm not that friend that's finna, like, sit there and listen to you for hours, complain about a man who just whooped your ass, and then you finna go right back over there. Or he's been cheating on you. You constantly finding stuff in his phone or whatever. I'm so over it. If you're not gonna do anything to change your situation, I don't know what to tell you. Best of luck. Go find somebody else to talk to about that.
Go follow your bliss elsewhere.
Yeah. I literally won't answer my phone. Like, I literally will look at my phone and I'm like,
airplane mode.
Yeah. Go right back to what I'm doing. Not even joking. So, and it's okay, ladies. It's okay to protect your peace, because people are going to try to tell you, oh, you're being selfish and you're self-absorbed and you're this and that. No, I'm protecting my peace. And if you don't protect your peace, people are just going to take advantage of you. It's not going to benefit you to let people disrupt your peace.
And if you think of it, if you need to think of it this way, think about it like this. If you really are trying to decenter men, just know that these women are by proxy going to center men in your life. Because if every conversation you have with a certain person is about a man, and the man is impacting her in a negative way, and she still chooses to center him, that means you by proxy are participating in that. And if that person is not, allowing you to change their mind about it, like their mind is made up, then their mind is made up. Yep. And you are centering men by continuing to hang out with male-centered women. And I'm really glad that we kind of dove into the deep end of this right away, because it's really, a lot of times people think pick-me's are annoying because they want to like embarrass you in front of guys, or, they think that they're so cool or whatever. No, the reason that they're dangerous is because they will literally put your life in danger.
Literally.
Yes.
And in more ways than one,
Yes.
right? It doesn't always have to be a rescue mission. It's like you're going to go hang out with a male-centered woman and she's going to be like, let's go hang out with who? Other men.
Mhm.
We're going to go hang out with men. And it's always going to be the worst, kind of most dangerous men.
I
Like
have
I
a story.
literally
Thinking that.
remember.
I have a story.
Mm-hmm.
I was just
I was
thinking
gonna
that.
say, like, my cousin was one of these women, and I remember being on like a interstate freeway with a man who had drunk like a fucking fifth of tequila behind the wheel.
My God.
And it's literally a miracle I'm alive, and I had no idea that was gonna happen.
Right.
You know, it
Good
was
God.
under the guise of, oh, let's go, he's gonna buy us alcohol or whatever. He wasn't supposed to be drinking any of it, and then he just started, and he wasn't like stopping. And it was literally a miracle that we got home safe. And that was my wake-up call. I was like, I shouldn't be alive right now. And I stopped
Wow.
hanging out with her.
Wow.
The story I have with that same pick me friend I just mentioned earlier, this one should have been my wake-up call, but it didn't click for me yet because I was still like 21 at the time. But I had a birthday party and she showed up late. And not only did she show up late, she brought a man with her that
my
she did
God.
not tell me that she was bringing. Like usually like the courteous thing to do is be like, hey, can I bring a +1? And then say their name and whatever. No, she just brought him. And she made him pay for everything, which, okay, sis. Like, I see your point. But at the same time, it was just like, you could have just warned me. But my sister at the time, she's younger than me. She is 17. She would have been 16, 17 at the time of my birthday party. This man that she brought was flirting with my underage sister. And I even told him, like, do you know, she's 16. She's a child. Like, you do not talk to her that. I corrected him on the spot. And I wish I had gone a step further to protect my sister. That is my biggest, most deepest regret. And I've told my sister this year, like, I feel like I should have protected you better. Because he didn't touch her. Thank God he did not touch her. But the fact that he made her uncomfortable, and I felt kind of trapped at the moment because I didn't have my car at the time. So I wish I still would have just like called an Uber or something and just found a way to leave that situation entirely. Because the fact that my little sister was uncomfortable should have been enough. Should have been enough of a red
It's
flag
hard to
be
know
like,
what to do in that situation. It really is. And it like people expect that. They expect that when you're going to be put on the spot, it's going to be hard for you to say something. And that's why they do these things.
when I said something to her about it, like she said, well, I don't know why you're so upset because he paid for you. He paid for your meal and blah,
See?
blah, blah. And like, and I didn't ask him to. And like, I was there because like I could afford this meal and I was able to have my card ready and he just he was quicker with it. And so the waitress took his card and I'm just like, all right, well, happy birthday to me, I guess. I wasn't going to, fight about it, but I really should have because if I would have known that she would have used that excuse later for his bullshit. There's a lot of things when I look back that I feel like I should have done better. But yeah, just being 21 and dumb.
Yeah, that's why these men like younger women too.
Yeah, because you don't have any life experience. What about the women who bring their men on girls' trips?
Jail.
Supposed to be a girl trip. And you're like, oh, my man is coming. Why?
Jail. No.
My man ain't letting me go on a trip with no girls. Why? Why are you with him? Why are you with somebody that's telling you what you can and can't do?
Period.
Like, why?
And it's one thing for like,
And if you
for
can't
your
go,
relationship,
then
but he's
don't
telling me
go.
what to do.
That's exactly it. Like, what? But don't get me wrong. You can do what you want. But if this is supposed to be a girls' trip, no XYs allowed. Why are you bringing your husband, your man? But I know why they do it. They do it because either the man is making them like, you can't go without me. Or a lot of times women try to flex on the women that don't have their man or don't have a man at all. And they think they're flexing, should I say.
Well, they're bringing him for male validation.
Yeah,
And it's like,
yeah,
this
it's
is
like-
the opposite of how you decenter men. Girls'
The
trips
total
are a great
opposite.
place to like decenter men and like glow up and have
And
fun.
have fun.
And it's like, you're literally going to ruin it. Like,
the man's
I
just
love
afraid
my
that we're going to
husband.
talk about him. That's
Well,
why
You
that-
can't be 2 or 3 days without a man. Like, what the, like, that's sad. That's
No, it's
just
crazy.
sad. Like,
It's
you
crazy.
can't. Don't get me wrong. I understand people don't want to break away from like the people they love, but a girl's trip, it's a girl's trip. Like it's 2 days, 3 days, like whatever. Like you can't be away from your man.
And there's
for
just
3
so
days.
much you can't do around. Like it ruins the girl's
does.
trip. Like it ruins the whole vibe. Because now it's like the same kind of man that you don't feel comfortable wearing your pajamas around.
I was
like,
just
what if
gonna
you,
say.
you know, and then now the girl is like, why are you wearing that around my
I was
man? It's like,
just about
I'm
to say.
going on a fucking girl's trip.
I have
like, I don't want to
literally been in
cater
that
to that.
situation multiple times.
Me
And
too.
I finally, and I was raised that way. I was raised like, don't go around people's man dressed a certain way. Like it was just the thing that my grandma and my mom told me, which I understood and I did for quite a while. But once I got older, I'm like, that ain't my problem, yo. Like, if we going to
No.
a beach or a party or we're in Miami or whatever we're doing, I'm wearing what the fuck I want to wear. If you want to bring your man, yes, chances are he's going to be staring at my ass and whatever else. And I can't do nothing about that. Like, I'm sorry. But I would have preferred that you didn't bring him and then you don't have to worry about this. But if it ain't me that he's staring at, it's going to be somebody else.
Exactly.
That's the kind of man
well,
you
that's
got.
why you were afraid to leave him at home.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like, it's such pick-me behavior. It's such like male identified behavior. I can't. I don't have the mentality to deal with women like this anymore. I can't do it.
Absolutely.
I'm not dumbing myself down. I'm not like covering up because I'm going like, I've had women get mad at me and say, why are you naked? We're at a pool party. I'm wearing a bikini. Yeah. That's what I'm supposed to have on. You could at least put on some kind of cover up. No, I don't want to put on a cover up. You want me to put on a cover up as I go walk to the pool to jump in? You need me to have on a cover up as I'm jumping into the pool? Really?
No, seriously. It's like all of a sudden we're crossing the boundaries into like religious controlling behavior. Like,
I can't stand
I don't
that.
understand. No, it's really terrible. And it ruins friendships and it ruins like the spaces that women are supposed to have just with each other.
Right. It does.
Just for the girls.
Yeah.
And it's very different because your man, like I just don't understand like how objectively a lot of women don't see that it's your female friendships that are going to be the reason you have nice things. It's not your man. Most of the time, men are just there to leech and parasite off of you. Yeah. They don't really love you, especially these kind of men that want to have all these rules around, like whatever. They're there to get theirs. And you are there giving them theirs. And other women around you are suffering because of that. Like we've had to have these discussions too about, why isn't my community of women waiting for me now that I've made a bunch of bad decisions? And it's like, because it takes away from us, like we're over here like both putting into it and like benefiting from it. But if the only time you come back is to benefit from the community, and then once you've done that, you run back off with a man, now that you've got yourself back up on your 2 feet and you've got yourself back together, the first thing you do is go and you bring all of that energy to a man, then what is the women's community getting from you? Like, I'm glad that you're benefiting, but you can't just be like, a bird that flies south or whatever for the winter, like while the rest of us like stay here. And it's like, there are plenty of women that are partnered and married and they contribute to the women's community because their husband pours into them, because they have resources, because they're at least like, they're smart enough to look out for themselves and to benefit from a man. Yeah. Rather than benefit from the women's community and then bring all of that to a man's quote unquote table where he's going to take it and ruin your life and make everything difficult for you. And then you're going to go running back to the women and be like, oh, I need help. Like now I have a kid. Now I have debt.
Oh my God,
now I have, and then now it's time for the village. There are no men in the village, okay? There are no men in the village. So if you want the village, then, you got to be woman-centered because the village is woman-centered. Like,
and if there is a man in the village, I'm pretty sure he's bad news. Like he's not safe.
Fox in the hen house.
Saying.
Yeah.
I had a friend too that she was married and her husband, whenever we would like all get together and like go to the club and hang out, he wanted to go. He was always with us on our girls' night out. And come to find out, he basically wanted to be around us because it made him look like he was some kind of pimp.
Oh yeah,
like you know what I'm saying? Like he had all these beautiful like women around him, and he
got
would
him
just
respect
sit there.
From other men.
Yeah, he would just sit there and like talk to us and try to make it seem like we're all there for him. And once I caught on to that, I was just like, how is she okay? And she knew. She absolutely knew, and she was okay with it. She was just like, he just like to feel like he's the big man. Like, really?
Yeah.
With your cousins and friends? Like, that's just weird. But they had a very weird relationship in general. Huh?
Said, I know it echoes when you tap on her head.
Yeah, I'm just like, yeah. So
oh my God.
The things women do for men is just fucking outrageous.
Just
and you're not, and it's not reciprocal. You're not getting it back. You're not getting not even a fourth of that energy back from them. So like Lisa said, the village is always going to be women. It always has been women. It always will be women. You're going to come crawling back to a woman for whatever reason. Like You need help paying a bill. You need a village. You need somebody to pick you up from the hospital. You need whatever it is. It's gonna be a woman that's gonna help you. And if a man comes, just know he has an ulterior motive. Unless it's like a brother or something, obviously. Even still, right? Well, I came to get you, so you should let me borrow some money or whatever. It's always something.
Yeah, men tend to be transactional.
They're very transactional.
And women tend to be sustainable. And so it's kind of like to everybody according to their needs, right? And it just drains the women's community when we're constantly having to center men in there by proxy of male-centered women. It's like we're constantly being forced to center men because there is children that they fathered that now need support, not from their father, are not getting support from their father. They're getting support from the woman's, mom, aunt, sister, friends, etc. And the father is anywhere but to be found, but he is being centered because that's his child that women are spending their resources and their time caring for. And it's like, yeah, women do that, but because we have to. And this is part of the reason too that like older women don't have like careers or whatever, like older women, I don't know, like there's just, you're expected to do so much, or like older women don't get to enjoy their retirement or whatever, because it's like my husband or the father of this child is not taking care of them. So here you go, mom, here you go, aunt, here you go, sister. And it's like, well, now a woman's been put out because a man is out here doing less. Like we're making, instead of having a community of abundance and sustainability, we're having a community of lack where we're fighting over men, where men can come in and sort of disrupt the whole balance. We're being just drained for resources because men are not stepping up to the plate. How many women have had to borrow money from their friends because their husband gambled their money away? This was a huge problem in the Slavic community, and the reason why my mom didn't have a lot of married friends, because all the married friends she had were always needing something. And it's like, I thought you had a man.
What is the point in having...
What is the point? Her single friends were completely independent, never really needed to lean on each other for anything but like, oh, hey, I got robbed. But guess what? By a man. And it's like, at least that's one of those things that like, you're not condoning, that you're not like bringing into your house. You're not like, oh, here, I love robbers, like, come on in. It's like, okay, something unfortunate happened and now the community can come together for you, obviously, right? If a woman was assaulted, right, it's like the community will come together and support. But it does get very taxing when it's like the male-centered women in the women's community. It's like, well, you went back to him again. Now there's another baby. Or now you're in more debt. Now he's in jail and you bailed him out. Now you don't have money to pay your bills because he didn't show up for court. Like, it's just exhausting.
It's very exhausting.
And men create lack even by proxy. So you have to remember that. And a lot of women talk about, oh, wouldn't it be wonderful if we had these women's communities and like, why don't we just live together with other women? And I'm like, you better have something in writing.
Absolutely.
You better have something in writing that no men are allowed. Because
even
that
in
is going to be
that
the
were
cutest.
women only, they still brought their men in there.
Exactly. And it puts other women in danger.
Yeah, and it does put you in danger, because I guarantee you that man is looking around at other women he could possibly cheat with. And it's just going to cause... I'm used to this type of stuff, y'all. So that's why I like know so much about it. But it's like, another thing that really drives me crazy is that they expect a group of women to be more accountable for their children than the fucking father.
Exactly.
Like, it's almost like by default or somehow, some magical way, they end up figuring out that their baby daddy ain't shit or he ain't gonna help them or whatever. And it's like, you would literally turn around and put that burden on your friends. I got into it with a woman before because I wouldn't let her borrow any money. And I had the money. I just didn't want to give it to her. Because I was always told, never loan out any money that you can't afford to lose. Exactly. In case they don't pay you back.
Yeah, I don't do loans. It's like, if I can afford to give it to you,
I'll give it to you. Yeah, but I didn't want to give it to her because I was already on the verge of like getting ready to be done with her anyways. So it didn't really matter. And she was one of those women that you don't understand because you don't have a husband. See, you're operating from single woman, like, blah, blah, blah. I'm married. I've been married for 10 years, blah, blah, blah. She was one of those. And so I'm like, okay, well, and she used to always say, well, I don't have to work. Because I used to say, well, I'm on my way to work. And she would like, I don't have to work. And I was like...
That was a friend?
Yeah. Well, in hindsight,
Front of
no.
me.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, right.
But, and so I was trying to tell her, like, and she thought I was being a hater. I was like, well, technically, if I didn't want to go to work, I don't have to, because my man at the time was making way more than me. He's a veteran, all of that. And he was still working he had a government job and he was a veteran. He was like doing very well. Technically, if I don't want to go to work, I don't have to. He didn't care what I did. But I go to work for me, right? Because I like having my own money and I don't like depending on nobody. And she didn't understand that. And I was trying to tell her, I was like, that man could like literally divorce you at any moment and then you literally would be fucked.
You'd have
And
nothing
she was like, well,
to
he
show
can't
for
leave
it.
me because blah, 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 blah. Guess what he did? He divorced her. And he just gave me this vibe like he was hiding something. She was very delusional. And she would always say like he didn't ever want to talk to her about anything. And she would like go through the house and like break all the TVs to get his attention and every flat screen. I pulled up to her house one day and it was like 4 flat screen TVs smashed in outside of her fucking house. Stuff like that. And I'm just like, my whole thing was, okay, you're married. Why do you need money from single old me? You have a whole husband that makes a decent amount of money. What's the problem?
Crazy. No, that's a crazy
that was my
thing.
whole thing. Like and then she used to tell me she didn't think I was her real friend because I never told her my business, but she told me all hers. And I was like, well, for the past 13 years, I've watched what you did to people once you fell out with them. You told everybody's fucking business like this whole time. So yeah, I'm not telling you shit. And really, it ain't even nothing to tell. But even if it was, I'm not telling you anything because I already know. So I was already on the verge of like, we used to get into it about religion and all that stuff because she swore me down. She was like saved by God, but we would be shaking ass in the club on Sunday or Saturday night. And then she'll get up the next day and go to church and say, I got to stay away from you because I think I'm a bad influence. And she did this at least once every few months. I'm not even joking.
That's so funny.
And so I was like, well, yeah, we would get into these arguments and I'm like, you're just being fake and blah, blah, blah. And she told me I was fake. And I said, no, I don't shake my ass at the club on Saturday and then go to church on Sunday. I'm an atheist. I don't go to fucking church. So I can go shake my ass 7 days out the week and I'm good because I'm not having this internal battle of evil and good like you are. I happen to believe that none of that exists. So I'm not really tripping on that. I just live my best life. And so we were getting into it about that kind of stuff. Eventually we just faded out and I just like don't ever want to talk to her again. But she was definitely a pick-me. Oh, she was another thing she used to do when you go. So ladies, if y'all go out with women and they're always in competition, like who could get the most numbers and stuff like that. First of all, I was in a relationship, so I wasn't trying to. She was married too. She still did her thing. Whenever she got into it, her husband, she'd go out and cheat, whatever. And I'm like, first of all, the guys that are hitting on you are like losers and bums, married,
male
got
attention
girlfriends.
is cheap and
it doesn't mean
everywhere.
anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't. And there was a few of them in her family too. Like I just stopped hanging with all of them because I'm like, y'all care about what men. They didn't understand. I'm not in competition with women. We're friends in my mind. We're gonna go out. We got each other's back. And I will say that was one good quality about her for the most part is that we came here together, we leaving together. Like that was our girl code thing. There was plenty of times where I did leave her because she kept saying, girl, I'm grown. Leave me alone. Get the fuck out of my face. And I was like, okay, well, fuck it. Like, you know what I mean? But she always ended up being okay. But for the most part, we did like stick together. Wherever she went, I went. We ain't leaving no drinks around. So there was good qualities about her, but she was so delusional.
Same with my pick-me friend.
Yeah,
like, there were some good qualities.
Delusional.
Yeah,
oh my God.
they always have.
Living in Delulu
It's
land.
like you're not friends with them for no reason, and it's very frustrating. Like the 5th time that you realize like, oh shit, I'm really not getting through to her. That's when you start to put it together. You're like,
yeah.
Like, this is just going to keep happening no matter what I do. And no matter how much, the frustrating thing is like when they come to vent to you, they're like, yeah, fuck that motherfucker. I'm going to pack my shit and I'm going to leave. And you're like, yes, girl, like, let's do it. Like, I'll come like help you move things out, like whatever. And then like later that night, they're like, oh yeah, they're like, oh, this is amazing. Like he came home with flowers and chocolate and like.
Like clockwork.
Yeah, like clockwork every time, she's like, yeah, I think he's changed for real this time. Girl, like.
This man made her cry on her birthday because he drunk called her and said some shit that just made her cry. I didn't get to hear on the other end of that, but I know it was enough to like have her on the floor and cancel her whole party. And so she just wanted to cry in her room. So I was there with her
God.
while she was crying in her room and trauma dumping on me. And to where like the next day, her boyfriend showed up to the front door with like donuts and
Ew,
like
I hate
an
when they do
apology
that.
and some flowers
And she was
and a late
putty in
birthday
his hands
gift.
again.
And I was like, I don't even want to look at you. You made her cry on her birthday. Her birthday. Like, why are you here? And just like, it's too little too late. And it's like, if that were me, like, you would have been dumped. I would have been just left you.
Am I the only one who cringe? Like, I don't know if it's because I'm older. No, I take that back. I was like this in high school too. I cringe when I see women crying over dudes that literally just dog them.
Are you not embarrassed?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like,
Are you not embarrassed?
I can see crying because he died or something.
Yeah.
But like,
but
he's like cheating on you, or he's like
crying 'cause
beating
he's a
you or whatever,
dumbass?
and you're sitting there ruining plans, missing work and all. Like, why are you doing that? I say this all the time.
I will never understand. And I really do. I think it's like parents model what like the children are gonna be like. I don't know. Like
they do.
And
unfortunately,
it's easier. Like I found it easier growing up, you know, without a father figure in my life for the first like 10 or so years, because I understand the impact that the wrong quote unquote father figure could have had on me. And I could have been addicted to that cycle of making up, breaking up, you know, the real like emotional roller coaster. That shit is not fun to me. The moment I feel like I'm on a roller coaster with you as a man, I'm getting off.
Right.
I'm pulling that whatever it is that you got to do for them to stop the whole entire ride. I'm going to make a big deal of it. I'm going to get off the ride.
The string thing on the train.
Hit the eject button. I don't fucking care. Like pump the emergency brakes. I'm getting off. And I don't care like how I got to do it. I'm getting the fuck out of here. I do not want to be on a roller coaster. No.
It's not a good feeling.
It does nothing for me. Absolutely nothing. I need stability. I need consistency. I need follow through. I need like loyalty, all that. No, unless you're checking off all those boxes, we can't even talk.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't want to beg you for anything. I don't want to write you paragraphs. There, you know what? The moment
the wall of text.
Yes, yes. And it's like, as a woman, you need to realize, like, my favorite videos on TikTok are the ones where they're like, when you break up with your pretty girlfriend, or like when you threaten something and they're like in the car driving and she's like, okay, fine, then I'll just leave. And he's like, okay, go. And she leaves and like he's driving by slow and like 0.5 seconds later, another car pulls up and the guy's like, oh, hey, you out here all by yourself? And she's like, yeah, you know. He's like, oh my God, a pretty girl like you should not be walking around all by herself. Like they will line up outside your door. If a man is not willing to treat you right, there's another man right behind him in line who probably also won't treat you right. That's the gag. That's the gag, though. Is like they are so.
Where's the lie?
They exist in high multitudes, but I promise you, that's not the last man that can give you that experience. You know, you got to make them understand you mean business, because otherwise, they really go out there thinking that they have that kind of pull on women, and apparently they do. And it's like you're making the rest of us look pathetic. I don't know. It's terrible.
If I can just get women as much as I can to like, this really boils down to how you feel about yourself. Like what you accept from men is a reflection of how you feel about yourself. And I really wish that women knew you are the power source. They need you more than anything. I really wish they got to a place where they can just easily walk away at the first red flag. Like, just leave.
It needs to be like
it has to be right when it happens. You got to be comfortable with yourself enough to be by yourself for a while. You have to be comfortable with possibly being by yourself forever. And I hate to say that. But it's like,
you don't have to. That's the best relationship you're going to have.
It really
People don't realize, like,
it really is.
You can pour everything into a relationship with another person and it won't satisfy you.
Absolutely.
You have to like yourself in the absence of everybody else. It's the only way for you to have a good life. Like, I'm not even talking relationship. Fuck that. You are not going to have a good life if you can't have a good mental relationship with yourself.
If you can't sleep at night.
Simple as that. And that's why so many women feel like they need men, quote unquote, is because of the internalized misogyny that they have.
how do we break this from them? Like, how do we, because, I feel like the number one way is to know most men do not love you. Most men don't love women. They don't even like women. The vast majority. The ones that do, they see women as human. Like,
yeah, and they're going to be a huge exception. I'm so sorry.
It is.
They're not. You're not going to find one around every corner.
No.
I think, okay, I have lots of ideas. Let me just fire them off at y'all. First of all, I guess I can't say this anymore. SMEX workers, SWs, listen to them. Listen to them when they tell you the truth about men. That is one thing, even though, I may have my ideological oppositions. Practically, we need to support SWs and listen really carefully when they tell you what they know and what they've learned about men. Yeah. And you're going to come to find out that over 90% of all their clientele are married. Yep. Married. Yep. So you need to understand that if we have a common goal, that's where we unite on it. That's where the paradox sort of comes together, right? It's you think that being married is going to save you from certain things, whereas the women that really know are going to tell you that most of their clients are married. Yep. Okay. So that needs to dispel your notion of fairy tale endings and love from men, etc. They a lot of times view you as an appliance. And the moment you start, quote unquote, malfunctioning, as Burb would say, they go out and they find one that works in the way that they need it to work. So you need to dispel that. You need to understand that male attention is very cheap and very abundant, and it's everywhere. And the moment that you're not messing with a man anymore, there's going to be a line of 100 more outside of your door. Even if you are not attracted to them, whatever point is, the women are always going to be in high demand, no matter what. And it doesn't even really matter what you look like.
It does not.
It really doesn't. It's more about power to men. It's more about conquest. It's more about self-validation for them as well. They get very validated by women. But yeah, I think that's the first number one thing is listen to other women. And I think from our side, we need to support women so much that, because I feel like a lot of women lean on men because women versus women is so competitive, right? There's a reason why there's this stereotype of I don't get along with girls, or I'm not like other girls. It is because as women, we demand a lot of each other. Mm-hmm. So there is something to be talked about there. It's male validation is easy to come by. And that's exactly why some women like it, is because female validation takes a lot more finesse. You have to be emotionally intelligent, etc. And honestly, for a lot of women, it's male validation will do. I don't want to have to think too hard about things. These are the same women that will be why didn't anybody ask me about feminism? Because I don't want to work.
Oh God, please.
Yeah.
Women like that, the thing too with the sex workers is women like to demean them and instead of listening. So
yeah, because you think you're better.
Yeah, you think you're better, and you're not, because there's a very high chance that your husband is with those. I hate to say that. I'm just saying there's a very high chance. So you're not better.
If almost all of their clients are married,
that should tell you so much. Yeah. And also women need to know that there is absolutely nothing on the planet that you could ever do to keep a man faithful.
Nope.
Nothing.
Nope. Cheating is not preventable.
The only thing that's going to keep a man faithful is a man who wants to be faithful. Period. There is no amount of cooking you can do, sex positions, or the way you dress, or the way you swing from the chandelier. None of that matters. A lot of women started out probably doing those things with their husband, and then they had kids, or they moved up in their career and they became more demanding. Something happened, and now he's at the strip club or at a brothel with sex workers, complaining about how his wife is not what she used to be or whatever. So at the end of the day, please don't demean other women that's in sex work. You can learn so much from them. So much.
And know that your husband doesn't really view you any differently than a sex worker a lot of the times.
They really don't.
They're it's worse. Yeah, they expect a lot more.
I was just going to say, it's worse. Because especially if you have kids, if they have kids,
they never want to leave. Yeah, it's the best part. Smex workers will tell you it's nice because then they leave.
Mhm.
And my money, I have money. It's like, as a wife, you don't even get that. You don't even get the reprieve. You know, no, he's always around. He's always like hanging over you like a dark cloud. What's for dinner? What's for dinner?
She literally got the best of him and his money, parted him from, made sure he part from his money and walked away with none of the responsibility.
She won. Yeah.
Literally. And I know a lot of women are going to
say
she didn't win because she doesn't have the ring. You have the ring and your husband is
all
with
the responsibilities. Yeah.
the stripper or the escort or whatever.
And you have the kids and you have the dirty house.
Yes.
And you have his dookie stained underwear to wash. She doesn't have to deal with any of that.
And another thing, unfortunately, that Smex worker know way more about you. She knows all your business because he's telling her everything. And not so much of, and not a nice way. Usually it's they're complaining or some men. I've talked to many of them, these sex workers, and they have said like that sometimes the men will come in there and say they love their wife. She's great.
Absolutely.
She's great.
Yeah.
She's wonderful. I'm happy, but she doesn't do it for me. Like there's something's missing or whatever.
The Madonna whore complex.
I personally don't.
Again.
I don't believe that. I don't believe a man can be happily.
They're
married
telling
and
themselves
cheat.
a narrative. They're telling themselves.
I don't
a
believe
narrative.
that's possible.
Oh yeah.
And I hate that women have fallen for that because y'all male identified women listening to these men saying, of course a man can love you and cheat on you. No, the fuck he can't. If he's cheating on you, he's not in love with you. It's really that simple.
Really that simple.
Would you, if you were in love with him, would you be cheating on him?
Nope.
Most likely not. If you can
love
cheat
and respect go hand in hand.
Absolutely. If you can cheat on somebody like that, then you're not in love. You may have love for them, maybe, but you're not in love with them. And trust me, you want a man to be in love. If that's what you want.
Yeah.
He's going to need to love you.
And
be in love with you. Sorry. Not just love you. Be in love with you and a little bit more than you love him in order for that to work. And it just is what it is.
Listen to trad women too. Trad women have some things to say that I think young people especially need to listen to. Because there are some trad women that have come on TikTok and they've said, like, I did all the right things that I was taught to do as a traditional woman or as a traditional wife. And he still did me so dirty, because men will do that. Men will just do you so wrong and so dirty despite you being the perfect, wife and the paragon and everything that you did. And so they said some of the things that, that they wish they would have had as a prenup in their paper, or like a infidelity clause is another one. The infidelity clause was a big one that was like a recurring theme in some of these TikTok. Like, I implore y'all to go on TikTok and just search up,
ex-trad wife.
Ex-trad wives. There you go. Ex-trad wives. Not just trad wives.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
I don't want to send you down the wrong pipeline.
Right.
Yeah.
But ex-trad wives, when they talk about that, listen to them too. And especially listen to ex-sex workers and even current sex workers if they're talking about the truths about men. That's 100%.
Men love what you do for them. So in a lot of these conversations, when they're saying, oh, I love my wife and she's great and da-da-da, what they mean is she's great with the kids. She takes care of the house. Yeah. She probably has a job of her own. But she's busy. And so there's one thing that she doesn't do for me. And that's where you come in. But it's like what they're describing about their wife is not why they love her. It's the things that she does for them, right? And this is like a lot of trad wives too. They know that their husbands really only love them when they are cooking, cleaning, taking care of children, and then putting out at the end of the night.
Yep.
And so that's what broke a lot of the camel's backs with these trad wives, is that their husband would expect everything. And then the only part that they even had some control over was whether they quote unquote give him sex or not. And that was what burned most of them, was that they were like, I don't want to have sex with you because you don't help out around the house. I don't want to do all this. And they were like, fine, then I'll just cheat. And because they didn't have that prenup, because they didn't have anything in place, they didn't have that power like they thought they actually did.
A lot of them were so miserable in when they talk about their marriages. Like, I really listened when they talked about those parts.
Yeah.
Because I thought,
even that didn't save them.
No.
Right. None of that.
And don't think giving him sex even when you don't want to and you do it anyway, don't think that's going to do anything.
Absolutely
Because
not.
these men will literally leave. Y'all were just intimate at 8:00. And he's like, okay, I got to run. I'll be back. And at 8:30, he's at his side chick house.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what you just did for him sexually. I promise you, if a man wants to cheat on you, he's going to cheat. what I'm saying is, do not flip yourself into 12 pretzels trying to keep a man faithful and keep a man at home and make sure he doesn't leave you. They're going to do what they want to do. If they want to be good to you, they're going to be good to you. If they want to treat you with respect, they're going to. There's nothing you can do to make them do that or not do that. It's literally up to them. You have nothing to do with it.
And that's the moral of the story, ladies. Don't be a pick-me. We love you, and we'll be right back with our review of Adolescence. All right, y'all, we are back to talk about Adolescence. Very heavy series, in my opinion, especially that last episode was kind of a slow burn, but boy, some of those last scenes were really, really brutal. So let's get into it. Keep in mind, there will be spoilers.
Spoiler alerts.
Yeah. And it's also not so much about spoilers. It's really more of an exploration of what is happening with our young men right now. So the overview of this is a family's world turns upside down when 13-year-old Jamie Miller is arrested for murdering a schoolmate. The charges against their son force them to confront every parent's worst nightmare. And so basically that's the description of the show. We open with a 13-year-old boy indeed getting arrested for crime that he denies committing. He denies it all the way to the police station. He denies it all throughout questioning until basically his father, who followed him there and is with him during this whole questioning, is shown CCTV footage of his young son stabbing this young woman to death. And we kind of go from there. Now, there is some, maybe like speculation or confusion about whether we were like the murder part, whether he did it or not, was being like left up to interpretation. I think most things I've seen seem to confirm that, the murder did happen and he did do it. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely like room to speculate there, but I don't know if that was their intention.
Yeah. I think they should have made that CCTV footage a little bit more clear to avoid that bit of suspicion of whether or not he did it. Because to me, when I saw that, it looked like he was just punching her. Or
That's
like
what I thought too. I thought he was just like beating her.
Yeah, but apparently that was the footage of him stabbing her. But I didn't catch that. So it's good that y'all did, if you caught it.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are gonna be tempted to think of it as like a whodunit. I think it's really purposeful that they cast a boy that you wouldn't necessarily be inclined to believe that about, right? Because he looks so young. He looks so innocent.
He peed himself whenever the cops came, and he was so scared, right? And
I think you
almost believe him.
And I think they meant to leave that in there. I think they meant to be like, even if a boy is young enough to be completely terrified, to look so innocent, like whatever, you still can't vouch for how he really feels about women. Like that part can still be very strongly present there. And like, he can be a child in every other way. But when it comes to red pill content and how the porn and how these boys relate to women, it can be there no matter what they look like. A lot of parents would be surprised to know that their 8-year-old son has probably seen pornographic content at some point, but he probably has if he has a phone and if he's being left with it unsupervised.
I picked up on how young he looked. I'm like, he looks like he's like 10 years old,
right?
Or younger, when he was getting fingerprinted and all that stuff, like a hardened criminal. The blood test, he was afraid of needles like a little kid. Don't get me wrong. There's adults that are squeamish about needles, but they just added in those little tidbits, like he's a child, like he's so young. Yeah,
I don't think that was supposed to be lost on us. I think that they want us to know that these two things can coexist. Like, it can be hard to believe. And yes, this young boy could have been radicalized enough online to stab one of his peers who happened to be a girl.
And I hate it because nobody thinks it's going to be their kid. They also, you remember when they referenced Andrew Tate in the beginning?
Yes.
This red pill ideology and how dangerous it is, poisoning these young boys' minds. It's just, and this is the future. This is the thing
that's what people don't realize.
We want women to understand. This is the future. These boys are being radicalized in this way on purpose because, when people feel like they're losing power, they're going to do everything they can think of to maintain that power, either get it back and maintain it again. This is just like what they call the extinction burst, where boys, men are just trying to reclaim their purpose in society and they're ahead of the patriarchy and all that stuff. These boys are trying to find a place. And when they're listening to people like Andrew Tate and people like that, doesn't matter how you raise them. Like a lot of times it does not matter. They're going to be raised up. What did you say? They're going to be raised up until they're 10 or 9 or whatever age?
At least parents have a more direct influence on the child up till about like age 10, 11, 12, up to the point where you would put them in like a grade school or like a public school. And after that, it is up to the experiences of that child will have in those schools or in those like peer groups, where now they're experiencing for the first time how other people their age are thinking and feeling and doing things that their parents sanction or don't sanction. And they're having their own little, first world experiences and they're developing this part of their brain for the first time ever outside of your purview. And so it will be up to those first 10 critical years of your role as a parent to instill enough confidence in this child to know right from wrong, to know that the things that, these kids are doing will be different from, the things that you had taught them. And it will be up to how you raise them to have their own version of self-esteem. And Gail Dines had talked about this in her books. So parents of boys, I do implore you to look up Gail Dines and she will kind of guide you into this. And I'm kind of just recapping what all she talked about building your child's self-confidence and self-esteem up from when they're young. So that way they will have enough experiences to know that like porn, when they see it for the first time, it's wrong and that they will tell you about it. And they will have enough trust in you as a parent to tell you about these things that other kids their age are doing and exploring. So it really is kind of like out of your hands after a certain age, whether parents want to realize that or not. Even because like you can helicopter parent until they're in their teenage years, but that's when they're going to start to resent you for that. So it's really up until they're about 12 years old where you can be a helicopter parent and have that voice in the back, be that voice in that kid's head.
And cross your fingers and hope that everything that you taught them sticks, because man, no matter how you raise them, they can just easily just go the other direction.
Society will still raise them. Society will raise them.
Absolutely. That's exactly
from their peer groups and things like that. And that's what the show is also trying to show us throughout, I think, episode 4, when the parents were sitting down in the bed, just kind of like reeling about their parenting decisions and the things that they allowed. Like maybe we shouldn't have let him be alone in his room on the computer until 1 a.m. because the mom was saying how she would walk by his room and see the light under his door to show that he was awake, and it would be like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and how she thought like, oh, that was the point where I should have stepped in as a parent and told him no. But then the dad was like, well, you never know what he was doing. He could have just been watching porn. And like that was better, but
well, right. And like not realizing that perpetuates misogyny. Whenever I do talk about the consequences of like porn addiction or whatever in my lives or in videos, men always show up and they're like, yeah, but women watch it too. And it's like, yeah, women get to see women be dehumanized too. So, okay.
They're learning the
same things, like unironically, and it doesn't help them. They're learning that it's okay for their bodies to be exploited for men's pleasure and for their bodies just to serve as a vessel for that. But also, like, mind you, they had a daughter who was older. And she wasn't out here stabbing anybody. No. She probably had a computer when she was younger too. And I like that they didn't shy away from that. Right. I like that in the show, the parents were even asking themselves, like, how did we give birth to both of them? How did we give birth to him and to her? Because she is extremely emotionally intelligent. Like, she was sort of like holding up her parents from all of this. And like, she was, I don't know, like, especially in that last episode, like the way she read the room, the way she was like, I can tell you guys don't want to go out. Why don't we just stay in? You know, like she was like easing the tension. Meanwhile, the boy has clearly been nothing but a burden, and he doesn't feel bad about that. Like, I don't know, like she clearly feels like she has some stake in the family. She has some buy-in. Like, it's not just about her, it's about everybody. And he just didn't seem to have that same attitude, like, at all.
And it wasn't lost on me how the father's van got spray painted like nonce on there. She kept saying, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, Dad. And she kept being very apologetic. I don't know if anybody else caught that, but I caught that because like that to me just signaled how she has been walking around eggshells around her father for probably her whole life.
Yep, exactly.
Because he had such a temper. And though they never showed it in the show, his outfits of rage and outbursts of these, various like anger emotions, it was hinted at in the way that the women around him behaved. wife never raised her voice at him.
Mhm.
And the daughter, she kept being very apologetic and very kind of mousy around
Mhm.
him because they both know that he has a history of these rage, anger outbursts.
And remember
Absolutely.
how he would never say anything bad about his dad? Like everything he said about his
Mhm.
dad was praising him.
Yes.
And it was a little conflicting because I'm like, he definitely has anger issues, the dad, but it just goes to show you how the boys just they either don't see it because they
Mhm.
idolize their dad so much, or they do see it and they're still going to take up for the dad.
I just thought that because he wasn't, beating, like physically abusing his son, because he's like, that's one thing I will never do. I will never beat my son. And so I didn't. And so how did he, still turn out the
this
way that he did?
Yeah.
And it's because while you didn't beat him, you still didn't show affection either.
Mhm.
You still weren't there for him emotionally when he needed you. At all points of time, whenever his son was looking for his dad in the room, his dad was somewhere else. His dad was looking away in shame when he was bad at footy or when he was bad at his games, and all the other parents were laughing at how bad his son was, and he just felt nothing but shame
Mhm.
instead of just, encouraging his son and being there for his son and maybe having some pep talks in the car or something. Or maybe even just knowing that, that's not something your child even wanted to do, because
Yeah,
in the
like
fourth
read the
episode,
room. Yeah.
yes, they said like, oh, he was so good at drawing. He was such a little artist as a kid. Like, okay, well, why didn't you put him in art programs? Why did you put him in sports?
Right.
And so that part wasn't lost on me either, how their version of masculinity was just, sports
Mhm.
and, being the dad that's the proud of his son and having that whole machismo. Well, it's what we call it here down here is machismo, and having that kind of pride and things like that. He put that over how his son actually was. And his son was an artist. His son was probably a little bit more, I guess, feminine than he wanted to admit. And being feminine or being gay was the worst thing to this dad. And you could tell, even though he never said it.
Absolutely.
I feel like.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so the worst thing that his son could have turned out to be was gay.
And you can tell he seemed to be, I don't know, maybe it was just me thinking this, a little bit more concerned with how people were going to view him as a dad when his son got in trouble, more so than he was concerned with like he was concerned with like how his son got like that. But I just think he was more concerned with what people would think of him.
Mhm.
Because there was a few things he said, and the way he was acting, and then like how the camera stayed zoomed in on him while the son was getting the exam. And I was wondering, like, did he still believe his son's innocence at that time, or did he
I think he
kind of
did.
know? Okay, that's what I was wondering. Because you remember that scene where the camera like stayed on him the entire time the son was getting the exam. I could tell there was fear in his face, there was uncertainty and all of that. But I'm like, I just kind of wondered what was going through his mind. But I think he was a little bit more concerned with like how people would view him. And you remember when he ran after that kid on the bike?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Don't laugh at people. You don't know what I've been through." Which I didn't have I don't know, this might be bad.
Same,
I didn't have a problem
same.
with that.
I was gonna say it's one of those like times when toxic masculinity, you can only fight fire with fire, because that kid was definitely
Absolutely.
not gonna listen to a man being like, well, hey buddy, you clearly need to sit down and talk
Absolutely.
about some things. Let me be a good like male role model to you. No, like
Right.
this time he has his kid there, he has his wife there. The kid stalked him, so it's like the dad had reasonable reason to believe that maybe this kid had something sinister in mind, because his own 13-year-old son had just stabbed somebody in a parking lot. So it's kind of like, I don't really blame him for like losing his shit. That was
I didn't either.
in my opinion, the only appropriate time to lose your shit.
I agree.
But yeah, I still think it like scared his wife and child. I still think it was ultimately not probably the best way to deal with it, but it was one of those situations where I agree with Sovereign. Like, I'm not going to dog him on that. He did a lot of things wrong in that series, but I'm not going to dog him for that one, because that kid kind of deserved it.
Yeah. One of the things that made me realize he was guilty, what made me think he was guilty, because like you said, they did leave it up for interpretation, for us to kind of decide, was in the very first episode when he asked him, "Do you know when and when not to answer a question?" And he asked him his name. He's like, "What's your name?" And he just told him his name like it was nothing. And then he said, "Did you do this?" And he said, "No comment." And I was like, okay, yeah, he did it. That for me, I was like, okay, yeah, he did it. Because in my mind, a person that's innocent would say, no, of course, that very first time. Because don't get me wrong, he had been lying the entire time.
Yeah, he denied
the way
it.
he lied as a 10-year-old, like he kept lying. And then when he finally went off on a therapist, like,
Yes,
you
that was
know.
the point of the aha moment for me.
Yeah.
Was the
It was so many
therapist.
things. And he slipped up and said, yeah, because what I did. Wait, no, I didn't say that. You're putting words in my mouth. And then another thing that made me realize that he was just needing approval from a woman to some degree, maybe, was when he found
He
out
cared more about how she viewed him as like a sexual object. And he was like, don't you think I'm attractive? Don't you,
do you like
have
me
this,
or whatever?
do you like me?
Yeah.
As like more than a patient, I guess, was the point for me where it was like an aha moment. And the times that he lost his temper and that he was so good at hiding it from the guards because he never did that around the male.
Around the
He
men.
didn't.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yes, he didn't do it around the male guards or the male police officers or his dad. It was only around the female therapist that he really showed his true character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He threw the cup of water.
That was the point.
Then he threw the chair. And then you remember when he stood right in front of her and he flinched at her and he made her jump. And then another thing, when he thought he was in control, when he said she was asking him questions and he was like, look at you, all hopeful that I'm about to tell you something useful. Like he felt like he was in control, like the misogyny in him was starting to come out. And yeah, that interview was definitely sealed the deal for me, but I had already thought so, like in the first episode. I'm like, yeah, he definitely did this.
Yeah.
And then Ryan, that was his name, right?
Yeah.
In the movie. Ryan, the way Ryan, I laughed, y'all, when he said, hey, I need to talk to Ryan again. And he jumped out the window. And jumped out the window and took off.
So funny.
It's like, oh my God.
That's when I thought, okay, maybe it was him instead of Jamie. It was the kid that's like running from the cops, even though like apparently he had nothing to do with it, quote unquote, even though he's the one that gave him the knife.
Yeah. He's the one
I think that's why he was running. Yeah. Because he knew at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, he felt guilty. He was like, he was just supposed to threaten her with it. Like that would have been okay. Like that's okay. Oh, he was just going to threaten her with it. That's aggravated assault or whatever. That's like threatening somebody with a weapon. That's a crime too. So you were okay with him committing a crime, just not the one he committed. Like either way, you were okay with him intimidating and possibly stabbing a woman. Anytime you give somebody
scaring
a knife,
her with a knife, like
go scare somebody, quote unquote, you have to realize they might use that knife to stab them. And I also think like,
but when you're 13, you know,
yeah, well, I think he stabbed her because of the scene that we see with Ryan. So I think Ryan was there as more of a plot device because when the murdered girl's best friend started beating up on Ryan, what did everybody say? Oh, you got beat up by a girl.
Oh, yeah.
You're getting beat up by a girl. So I think that Jamie...
sausage.
Yes. So I think that Jamie stabbed Katie because he was like, what if she beats me up? Like, I can't go back to school knowing, because, like, that's a common thing.
Didn't she push him first?
She pushed him first. Exactly. Yeah. So I think he came up to her and was like, because we haven't even gotten into how he tried to ask her out when he perceived her to be at her lowest. Yeah. And vulnerable because her picture had been passed around. Because, like, I think the creators of the show took great care to not leave a lot of these things open for interpretation. Like, oh, well, she bullied him, so it was her fault. Of course he freaked out. She was bullying him. No. They made sure that she was being bullied at the same time. And she was being bullied worse. She was being sexually harassed at school because all these guys had seen her pictures and they were talking about, oh, she's flat-chested and all this stuff.
And she's 13.
And so they were literally passing around child sexual abuse material and laughing about it and making fun of this poor girl. And at the same time, she's the bully. She's the bully for...
She was such a bitch.
She was such
a bullying bitch, is what he kept saying.
For being mean to a kid who tried to swoop in on her like she's stupid. Like she wouldn't know what he was doing, taking the nice guy route. Well, do you want to go on a date with me? Do you want to go to the dance with me? And she goes, I'm not that desperate. And that set off his ego. Because... yeah, that's what he thinks being a man is. And I just think I think the creators of the show did not want it to be lost that she is also being bullied. She is not like just some mean girl being mean to him for no reason. She's being bullied. He's trying to take advantage of her. She's not letting him. And now he's mad. You know, she's like used goods or whatever. And even then, he's still not good enough for her. So now his ego's really triggered.
And remember when he said, I didn't kill her, but I should have? Remember when he said that?
Yes.
Yeah. Or when she said when he said, I wrote this down actually, when he said he could have done worse. He's like, I didn't touch her. You know, I didn't
Yes.
like do all this
That
crazy stuff.
shocked the therapist. That was when the therapist started shaking and she said, like, I need to cut this interview. Like, this is the last time I will ever talk to you.
Yeah.
And it was whenever he started to sound like a rapist at 13. At 13, this kid was saying things like, I could have, you know, shoved her down and done all this XYZ, and exactly like how a rapist thinks and talks and things like that. That's whenever she realized, like, it starts that young.
And
I
it's
think that's
like,
what she was thinking at the time.
Exactly. And I think the point too was that he didn't need to be submerged in red pill culture and like even know what it is, right? Or even know who Andrew Tate is, because it is so pervasive, right? Like boys will make fun of you if you get quote unquote beat up by a girl, right? The girl doesn't get any brownie points for beating up a boy. That's the other double standard too, is like nobody thinks she's cool because she beat up a boy. That is, she's a footnote in that story.
Absolutely.
The real lead, the story is that a boy got beat up by a girl. And with the show as a whole, honestly, the fact that like they made the girl's murder basically a footnote, like basically a plot. Like we never really hear about her ever again.
And they made a comment about that in the first episode too, where she's like, isn't it, you know, funny how, you know, during a murder, like the murder is always the more infamous one and the girl is just, she's always forgotten about. And that's what the show did.
And not only that, when they were like introducing, when the female principal was introducing the detective and the female detective, she introduced him and then she's like, oh yeah, and then this lady. Like she basically like it, they show it around every corner that like women are not
seen as human.
Like, seen as human.
Like,
exactly.
just,
right.
Remember when he got upset when he found out that was their last session? What do y'all think that was about? Do you think it was he was getting a kick out of like
he kept
talking about it and he knew it was going to come to an end?
No, I think he kept wanting to see her notes. And so that's like him losing his power over her because she was so interested in him and kept asking all these questions. And now like that kind of interest in him is fleeting. And that's like the only kind of control he had over her. And I think when he saw that, you know, it actually wasn't the case, that he lost his shit.
Yeah, he's like, it wasn't a proper goodbye. This is not a proper goodbye. I'm thinking to myself, like, did you give Katie a proper goodbye before you stabbed her to death? Like, that's literally the first thought I had. And I'm like, he
views himself as more human, than the grown ass woman in front of him.
Yeah.
Like he views himself as better than her. He thinks he's better than all women. And that's what I mean about like, they made sure that red pill content, they made sure that we knew that it's nothing more than just good old misogyny repackaged. It's the whole you got beat up by a girl, the whole you can't play sports, oh your dad's ashamed of you. And it's like, and I like that they showed the entitlement too, that boys have to like free emotional labor from women, because when she was like, oh, how do you feel about your dad being ashamed of you? He was like, you were supposed to tell me he's not ashamed of me. Why are you asking me that? And then he also...
He was a piece of work.
He really was. And he was... I don't know if y'all caught that when he was talking about his male therapist. He said, well, he just asks me easy questions. Yeah, he's easy. You know, that with him, it's like straightforward. He just asks me yes or no questions. Why are you asking me all about my feelings and all this stuff? And it's like... They both want and don't want emotional labor from women.
Yeah.
They want emotional labor in the form of coddling them.
As long as it suits them.
Yes. The coddling part.
Yeah. I totally agree.
Like, weren't you supposed to tell me that he's actually proud of me and that blah, blah, like all these expectations that, you know, she would like, I guess another woman in his life, like his mom, I guess, would have told him.
Right.
But she's not his mom, and that's what he never got. So.
Did y'all ever get any kind of like sense of how he felt about his mom at all?
Not really.
Nobody really
it was more to do with
asked
his
him
dad.
about that.
Yeah, I didn't either. I was trying to
That's
figure
because
out.
like boys, I do think that they at one point, you know, when we say boys will be boys, there's like a hidden implication in that. And that is boys won't be girls.
Yeah.
You know, you're not supposed to cry. You're not supposed to be emotional like a woman. So I think at one point, boys really do their best to sort of separate themselves identity-wise from their mom, their sister, any female like part of them, any feminine part of them, any part of them where they relate to women, any part of them where they see women as anything but sexual objects.
And I don't recall him saying anything bad about his sister. Like he said that she's clever or something like that. Yeah. That was it. And then that was it.
But wasn't he like comparing himself to her? Like basically she had it easier because she's smart.
But
yeah.
I also think that, like, I didn't know how to take that. In my mind, I'm like,
yeah.
does he see that as like, wow, she doesn't count, or I think highly of her? Do you get what I mean? Or I think she's different or something like that. I was just kind of trying to figure out like where he stood with that. But when that therapist cried at the end, I teared
cried
up.
with her.
I did too.
I cried too.
Because all I could think about is, even though that boy was like so demonic, and to me, he was very demonic.
It was demonic to me too.
There was the humanity still comes out, and you're still like, he's 13.
He's still 13.
He's a kid, and he
You
threw
still see
his
a
entire
child.
life away. And it's so scary because a lot of young boys have been and will in the future throw their entire lives away behind this type of mindset.
They will.
It's so sad. And like I said before, nobody thinks it's going to be their son. Like, no one ever thinks that.
But they also think boys are easier to raise. You know, they also think
because
that,
they don't teach the boys the things that they need to know. They just let them get away with everything, and that's
you're
creating a monster when you don't hold your son accountable in the same way that, especially that you hold your daughters accountable. You are creating future misogynistic men, future rapists, future abusers, like future losers in general, like just losing that life. That is literally what you are creating. And boys are not easier to raise. They're harder to raise if you're actually fucking raising them. Like, they're a lot harder.
If you're doing it right. Yeah.
If you're doing it right.
Harder
because
you're contending with.
Yeah. You gotta fight. You have to fight to keep them. Because to me, it just seems this way to me. Boys are way more, they're like easily prone to peer pressure. And I'm not saying girls are not.
Totally.
Oh, yeah.
But boys are so easy. I'm talking about just 2 seconds and they're already like red pill. And they're like 10 years old. Like, it's over. So you have to work extra hard to make sure, or try your hardest to make sure that they don't go down that path.
Yeah, because if you're over here thinking it's easy, you're doing it wrong.
And
that's how I know you're not raising your son.
You're not raising your son. You're not raising him. It is not easier. He needs to have the same curfew as his sister. He need, if they're around the same age. He needs to have the same responsibilities around the house. He needs to learn respect. Don't have the girls doing everything for the brothers and the brothers aren't doing anything. You cannot raise them that way, because it will be it's going to be your son. Like,
I think that was the point of the
when, not
series.
if.
I think that was the whole point, is that it can be anybody's son.
Yeah.
And I think that they, the dad, they showed him like composed and like emotionally intelligent a lot of the time, because even the littlest bits of like misogyny will spoil the whole punch, right?
Yeah, it would.
If there's even a little bit of shit in your punch bowl, you don't want to drink the punch. Like, the punch is no longer good. Even if it's just a little tiny turd floating around in there. And you take all the care not to drink it or swallow it or chew it up. It doesn't matter. It's contaminated. Yeah. The punch is going to give you like salmonella, like, or whatever it is that, like, I don't know. You're going to get C. diff.
Absolutely.
A couple of bad apples spoils the bunch. And that nobody ever finishes that part of the saying of like, it's just a few bad apples. But like the whole point, I guess, is it spoils the bunch. They just leave that part out conveniently.
Yeah. That's the actual saying. So, I mean, there's obviously so much to say about this show, and I'm sure that, Sovereign is probably going to make videos about it. I've already posted a YouTube video about it if y'all want to check it out. It was from a live that I did. But yeah, I just feel like we wanted to spotlight this series for our first film review and like give it to y'all as a recommendation, because as women, once again, I wish that I could say that more men are going to watch this and they're going to have the right conclusions from it. And, they're going to, do something about their own loneliness epidemic and their own red pill epidemic, rather than expecting women to take the fall for it. But, that's probably not going to be the case. But as a woman, and if you are a man trying to live in good faith, if you are a man trying to raise sons and daughters, or, whatever, woman, you need to see this. You need to realize how casual all of this is, how commonplace it is, and how peer enforced it is. And unless you really can be there with your child at school 24/7, and you don't know what the other kids are talking about. That was another big theme in the whole show. The parents had no idea.
Yeah, the son had to pull his police dad aside
to let
and
him know.
explain the
Yeah.
whole like 80% of women are attracted to 20% of the top 20% of guys or whatever. It's just like parroting off that, you know, red pill ideology.
Yeah.
So
Andrew Tate.
And I hate giving Andrew Tate all the credit for this because he's not the only one. And that's what I want parents to realize. You think you block one, but it starts, it's like a hydra. You cut off one head and there's two more that's like growing out of its place.
Yeah.
And it did not start with Andrew Tate. It did not start with these podcasts. This is, I guess, 10, 15 years. And it's always been there.
It has.
But they did not have platforms like they do now. They had 4chan, they had Reddit, they had their own little websites that they congregate, the incel culture, whatever, had congregated on before, and the MGTOW and all that. All this is like, you're seeing the tip of the iceberg, but the rest of it goes so much deeper underneath this. This is, at least, it's been around since the internet's been around. So giving Andrew Tate all the credit, this is the whole point of the show because I think it goes so far beyond this.
No, see, I think they use Andrew Tate because...
He's just an example.
Yeah, they use him
He's
as
a great
an example,
though.
As far as social media, he's started out kind of being the most popular guy pushing this rhetoric that so many boys just like ran to and like listened to. So he was just kind of put there as a pawn, I would say, or as an example. But yeah, this was way before Andrew Tate was born or even thought of, because the patriarchy existed for a long time. So, you know.
I think even Sneeko was another one. Sneeko did like a live when he went to like some, I guess, YouTube or like misogynistic convention or whatever for people who create this type of content. And he realized how young his audience was.
I remember that.
And he was, even himself, he was shocked because he thought he was appealing more towards like the adults. But like adult men don't really hate women as much. It's the young boys, Gen Z and now Gen A. And
no, to be honest, I think it's all generations of men.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Well, yeah, but this type of culture, though, the newer culture that's been popped up by these podcasts,
they're saying it out loud.
The main audience, yes, the main audience is just younger.
Yeah.
And
it just has the virality and like the ability to like spread around and like really take hold. And I think it's especially dangerous that it's happening during like the beginning stages of puberty too, because at that point, like boys are smaller than girls. Like at some point, like it's already triggering, you know, to them because it's so discordant from it's dissonant from what they see in like media, that men are strong and powerful and dominating and controlling. And they're like, how come these girls are bigger than me? How come they can beat me up? How come, you know, they seem to have it together? Meanwhile, I just have like, you know, I don't know. Like, and it's like, well, because girls are bullied into that by their parents, by their peers, by their teachers, by society. Girls are not allowed. They're not given that space like boys are. But boys don't get that. So they're like, it's very easy for them to, I think, become triggered at that adolescent age. And then it just stays with them. And I just want to say one last thing before, because Ryan's telling me we got to wrap it up. But I just want to say too, I hope nobody missed the part in the paint store or in the hardware store where the other kid was telling the dad who had seen his own son commit this murder on CCTV.
Yeah.
The other kid was like, you need to get him a better defense lawyer because me and these, you know, and me and these other young men online will like fund it, will support him because this is not okay. This is happening to like young men and da-da-da-da. And it's like, oh my God, like
a girl was murdered.
Yeah, they really covered all their bases.
But they think he's the victim.
They think he's the victim. They covered all the bases. And I still think men are going to walk away from this feeling like the victims. But they're really just the symptoms of this disease. They're not victims. They're symptoms.
It reminds me of the Barbie movie too. So right now, Adolescence is telling you what's going on with men. Barbie told you what was going on with women that forced men to start acting out the way that they are. So I love the Barbie movie because it really does highlight what's happening right now, currently. Like, how the patriarchy started.
I guess that could be another film review.
Yeah, how the patriarchy started, how women was getting powerful and, you know, had their own this and own that. And the guys were told, Ryan Gosling's character was told, I'm a man, I'm supposed to have everything. And he actually went to Barbie Land or whatever, thinking just because he was a man, he deserved to work at the top spots and be a CEO of a company, even though he had no background to do
qualifications.
Anything. It was so perfect. Like, I really enjoyed that movie because that's literally the mindset of the guys today. Like, it's literally, oh my God. We should do a film review about that. A lot of women did see it, but if you didn't see the Barbie movie, watch it. You will be literally blown away. Because I was sitting in a movie theater like, they really capture what's happening. Like, this is really what it is.
Greta Gerwig, shout out to you.
You said what?
Yeah.
Greta Gerwig.
Oh, the director.
Director, okay. Yeah. But
yeah, she did a great job.
It's very helpful.
maybe we'll mix it up from dark to light on our next movie review.
Girls.
We'll see. Mean Girls. Okay, Mean Girls is next, and then we'll do Barbie movie.
Mean Girls was such a fun movie.
I know. I started watching it today because I was like, maybe we'll talk about it today. But yeah, already I was like,
I knew Adolescence was going to take up all that time.
But that's a whole episode. Mean Girls is an entire episode in episode.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say. All right. Let me read our poll results before we hop off of here. The question was, what is the best advice for women wanting to avoid becoming another starter wife, quote unquote? And so, yeah, we were talking about the idea of wives being used by their husbands to build them up, only to be left after they've reached their potential or some measure of success. So what do we do to avoid falling into that trap? The options were: A, don't date fixer-uppers. A partner should already be whole. B was make sure your effort is matched, not just appreciated. C was invest in yourself first. Your growth comes before his. And D was I'm still learning, tell me what to do, or tell me what I should do. So we had a clear winner on both polls. That was, A, do not date fixer-uppers. And I think that's really good advice. Definitely don't date a man for his quote-unquote potential.
That was the whole point of that show, was like, don't, the 50-50 crap and all that. Yeah, no.
Potential's not real. What's real is tangible.
Unless it's actually 50-50.
You can't marry potential. Or at least don't marry for potential.
Don't do that. Yeah. And then on our Spotify or on our Patreon poll, we had a tie between don't date fixer-uppers and invest in yourself first. That goes hand in hand.
Real quick, the main reason why you don't date potential is because you're telling the man she's okay with me the way that I am. So there's no need for me to make any improvements. I don't have to work hard. I don't have to do any of that because she's already, once you marry him or once you have a baby with him, he feels like I can stay exactly where I'm at and I'm still getting all my needs met. And I don't have to get out here and pound the pavement for you. I don't have to do any of this. That's why you don't do it. He's not, you're going to want him for potential. His potential will not be realized. And then you're just going to file for divorce anyways. So just save yourself the trauma. It's not even worth it. Men don't think like we do. So that's the takeaway. You think he would think that way. Like, oh, okay, she married me. I gotta do right. No, that's not how men think. They're gonna get lazy as fuck. Why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free? Remember that old saying? They used to say back in the day? That's exactly how their minds work. Yeah. And they said they'll tell you this to your face. Why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free?
My dad says that to me.
Literally. So that's it.
Yeah. Good times. Well, that's it for our show today. Thank you so much for watching. If you watch, thank you so much for, getting to the Patreon, leaving us nice reviews. We appreciate y'all so much. Keep an eye out for our guest next month. I think that we can't confirm her yet, but once we can, we will. So keep an eye out, keep your ear to the ground, and we will see you all next week.
Bye, everybody.